is Suit Up Sports. Suit Up Sports. Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing great, buddy. It's good to see you again. It feels like, now the football season's here. It's like we live together once again. I remember there was a little bit of time where I was taking care of you, and there was a little bit of time where you were taking care of me. But it seems like we're back right in that same groove.
Yeah, man. It was great watching games this weekend, and it always trips me out how, by the way, we're coming to you live on X, YouTube, and Instagram. If you're watching today, we're coming live. There's a lot of people who want to vet and are pissed off about the Panther game yesterday, as are we. But it trips me out how yesterday, when we're watching the Panther game, we always have a bunch of people come over, and every year there's a couple people who have not watched games with us before. Mm-hmm. And Frank and I tend to get heated at each other in certain moments of the game.
It's like we're playing a game within the game.
Yeah, and it's always funny for me to see the reaction of some of these guys who think like we're getting ready to come to blows or something. And then 5 minutes later, we're sitting there laughing. They don't understand that's just the way we do it.
Well, there happens to be maybe a little bit of alcohol flowing.
Possibly.
A lot of food.
Yeah.
And then some high emotions because we're so enraged or so excited for what's going on within the game. We just got to kind of get it out.
Yeah, and
we both wear our emotions on our sleeves.
No doubt. And yesterday we had great. I made smoked a Boston butt for about 12 hours and
delicious
pizza rolls, and our buddy Dave made chicken and dumplings. We always have a great spread.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if you bought the brownies with the little cookie at the bottom with the marshmallow on top.
Dave.
Oh my, Dave has a opportunity after whatever he's doing right now if he wants to make some food.
Dave quit drinking about 2 years ago and decided he was going to become a cook. And this dude is baking stuff like it's unbelievable. He actually has somebody now that's going to start selling some of his stuff. You're right. It's really good. But let's get back to the football game, Panthers game. And I want to start off with the one thing I think I learned yesterday watching the Panthers. Now, we're going to dive into a bunch of things we think we learned. But the one thing that I think stood out to me the most was that I don't think Coach Canales trusts his quarterback. I thought the play calling yesterday was very predictable. I thought, there was times where we would go with no receiver sets, and you see Jacksonville knew exactly what we're doing. They'd run blitz, and they'd get Chuba in the backfield. I just thought that it looked like Canales didn't trust his quarterback. Now, Bryce might have given him some reasons not to trust him, and we'll get into that as well. But that's the one thing that stood to me was I thought the play calling was way too predictable, way too safe. And I know he wanted to establish a running game, and I get it. We need to. And Chuba played great yesterday for all intents and purposes. But I think Canales' offensive play calling yesterday left a lot to be desired, and it made it very easy, in my opinion, for the Jacksonville defense to be aggressive, pin their ears back, and almost know what was coming.
I don't blame the players for a lot of things, that took place. Now, they still have to execute.
Yep.
And a lot of times I will put the onus on the players because as a coach, we can only call the plays. But your job as a coach is to put your players in position to be successful. And a lot of times, DJ, I think that, us not really understanding all the inner workings of what's taking place in order to, call plays, it makes it seem like coaches don't trust players. And that may be the case in this. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying is that the process is when I have a young team, right, there's a couple of ways to do that. We can throw a lot at them to see what sticks, or we pull back. But if I throw a lot at you and nothing's sticking, I have to pull back. And because this is such a young team, I saw the frustration in Bryce, and I hadn't seen that before, ever, where he slammed his helmet down, because of the lack of execution, right? And when I say execution, there's a lot that goes into moving parts with different plays. And if one guy doesn't do his job on offense, it makes the other 10 look like they're incapable, right? I can miss a block as a guard and everybody else mow their guy down. Defense makes a sack or a tackle for loss, right? And it looks like we're inept. We don't know what we're doing. A guy run the wrong route. A guy's supposed to be where he's supposed to be and doesn't get there because he has a mental error, right? Or because he trips and falls. So those are the things that we don't see that take place within a play to have success. The play calling was very vanilla, right? Very predictable. And that's what you're talking about, is that you don't trust the quarterback. Well, or his players. I think it's more has to do with the players than it does the quarterback, because I saw the frustration with Bryce. Bryce was frustrated, I'm sure, like the coaches were, when it came to especially the 4th and 1 in the goal line. So how do I know that they want to trust their best player with the ball in their hand, right? But then when you go out there and you make the decision to throw the ball away on 4th and 1 on the 5-yard line, instead of just trying to stick in it, maybe get a pass interference, maybe get a great play, trust your receiver to go up there and make a play, whatever it might be. And you know what? The end result might be, an interception, right? In a worst case, that's the worst case scenario. Then you go make the tackle and you play football, or they get it on the 20. It's a turnover regardless. But to throw the ball away doesn't give anybody a chance to be successful. But the coaches felt like, hey, we're going to put our best player, our guy that's supposed to make the best decisions, with the ball in his hand. So they want to trust him. The frustration comes with Bryce is the guy's not being where they're supposed to be, or running the proper routes, or not picking, the right play, or not executing in those crucial situations. And that's where I look at the coaching and saying, they're not prepared to do that.
Well, let me say a few things about that. Number one, I think on the play you're talking about, first of all, in that series, I thought they should have thrown the ball earlier in the series, right? They ran the ball, and then Bryce on 4th and 1 or whatever it was, throws it away. Number two, the minute Bryce snapped the ball, you see him look like he was getting ready to throw immediately to the left. So that tells me somebody wasn't where they needed to be. That blows the play up.
Now he has to scramble.
Now he did have Sanders coming right across wide open, but he didn't see him. And you're right. I thought, how does he not at least try to throw it in there and
stick it in on somebody
PI or something? Right. But I thought the play calling leading up to that could have been a little different, to where if he's your best player, let him make a play. You've got a 6'4" rookie receiver in Ted McMillan, who had a very good game for his first game. You got these tight ends that you've been thinking that Sanders, looks like he's ready to take a step and whatever. So I thought the play calling leading up to that on that series left a lot to be desired. But I wanted to talk about this too, because you're an offensive lineman. You played center, you played guard, you coach. Canales talks all the time about doing the little things right and all these things. And you and I both had an issue with the fact for 2 years in a row now, our starters don't get hardly any playing time in the preseason. Yesterday, it was amazing to me how either the plays weren't getting in on time, or they weren't getting communicated correctly, to where it seemed like we were snapping the ball every time when the clock hit 0. And then with Corbett, and I get Corbett playing center this year, after playing guard for a few years and after coming off injuries, but we had a lot of high snaps. To me, if you're Canales and you're preaching all these things that he always preaches, and then you hear him after the game talk about execution and blah, 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 how the hell are you at the first game of the season and you're telling us we're prepared and all these things, yet we still see a lot of the same issues we had last year when it comes to getting plays in on time, and when it gets and then, like I said, the snaps or guys being where they're supposed to be. To me, the team yesterday looked very unprepared on offense. We'll talk about defense in a second, but on offense, I felt that
was supposed to be the strength of this team going into the season.
Everyone thought the Panthers defense still might not be that good, but we should score points. Everyone thought that. Even the national pundits, everyone thought that the Panthers are going to score points. Well, guess what? They still couldn't get plays in on time. They still had issues now. And here's the other thing that I thought was interesting. We all talk about the offensive line and how we finally have some cohesiveness there with the same guys. The offensive line played pretty good yesterday, in my opinion. The left tackle filled in and played solid. 5 of the top 7 rated players on the Panthers yesterday were offensive linemen. And first was Ted McMillan with a 78.9.
Chuba has to be up there too.
Hunt was second. Bryce Young was third with 71.3, which is going to surprise some people. And again, we're going to talk about Bryce in depth here shortly. Chuba was fourth, Moton fifth, Lewis sixth, Corbett seventh. So the offensive line all graded out as our top grades.
Well, who's grading these?
Well, again, that's all analytics.
And
you can argue.
And what criteria are they using?
But still, my point is that the offensive line played well. It wasn't like that Bryce was getting sacked every time. I mean, there was some pressure, and like I said, the left tackle I thought played well for being thrown in there, and especially against the defensive line and defensive ends that, Allen in particular for Jacksonville, that he had to go up quite a bit against. But I just don't understand how you tell everybody the team's prepared. They have cohesiveness now. Same offense for 2 years in a row. Same offensive line 2 years in a row. Same quarterback 2 years in a row. Same running back. How the hell are you still having those mistakes? And why can't you get the plays in on time? If it's too much for Canales to call the plays and coach the team, then he's got to figure something out, because he's the one that's got to get these plays in on time.
That's right. And the communication, the hard part is understanding the dynamics, not really knowing the dynamics, and only going from, maybe what I use now when it comes to play calling in high school, and even what I've learned from the past. And a lot of times when you go on the road, there's going to be, it's unfamiliar. You don't have, your home crowd. You can't hear staticky, whatever it might be, right? The crowd noise is also going to be a big factor in that. But those are the things that coaches are supposed to do, especially at this level throughout the week. I remember going through practices and putting on the music so loud in practice, knowing we were going to a hostile environment. This started back in college. Playing USC's fight song just repeatedly over and over, but it wasn't like at normal level, so we could have fun. It was deafening, right? So we could focus on using our earpieces that they created so that we could hear a little bit the line or the snap count. A lot of times back then, going under center was a little bit more traditional versus playing the gun. But now in the gun, there still has to be that process in which you're working on so that everything is aligned, so that when you snap the ball, you don't have a false start. You don't have guys, not ready to go. You don't have time to process. We're set, go, and the defense is still shifting, and I can't process anything.
Let me ask you this then, because Corbett had several high snaps yesterday, quite a few. Does the fact that a lot of the times he was having to snap the ball as the clock hit zero, as a center,
no, oh
right.
Shit, go.
Does that make it? Would you give any credence?
When you're ready to hit a golf shot before you're ready to hit a golf shot,
right? That's what I'm saying. So he knows he's got to hurry up and hike it, and as a center, he also has to get off the ball.
That's right.
You think that's part of the reason why maybe he had some high snaps, because those guys have worked together, all off season.
Those high snaps for some aren't high snaps for others.
Well,
and that's part of what we're talking about.
But he's been doing it with Bryce all off season.
I understand that. Not under duress.
Right.
So what happens when you're playing and live bullets are flying and the speed of the game is not preseason and everything is not, where it's going to be scripted.
Yep.
Right. Now you have to go out there and execute. Right. And that's what the preseason is supposed to be for.
Yep.
Right. It's all those little things of the moving parts of polishing them up. So when the season starts, you're not rusty. Right. And for the last 2 years under Canales, this team has been extremely rusty. After last year, not playing Bryce throughout the entire preseason, hoping he would come out and do better. What makes us think that? It's a brand new wide receiver room that he doesn't have a lot of familiarity with. You've lost your most consistent guy with Thielen. The only thing you can do is run the ball. It's because that's the easiest way to stay cohesive. What happens when you're going out in the passing game, you have motions, you're having to communicate to guys that aren't familiar with that because you can't verbally do it. So it's the body language, it's knowing what the defense is doing, it's putting the trust in those guys that they're going to be where they're supposed to be within the design of the play. And if they're not where they're supposed to be, you're going to see hesitation from everybody. Right. The play call has to be in so the process can take place.
Right.
And you should have about 10 to 12 seconds left if you're on top of your play calling in your game. Right. But the same thing applies for coaches.
So you're saying when the
whole process, DJ, even coaches calling plays.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
when the play comes in late, not only are you as a quarterback not able to make the pre-adjustments you need to make for whatever defense is being played, it also speeds up everything, and you don't. So that makes sense too. And again,
oh wow, let's go.
Yeah,
right?
That's why I didn't understand. I mean, almost every single down, it was almost like we were trying to run the clock out in basketball. Right. I couldn't believe every single play.
And that's what I learned. If you could describe this game in 3 words, what would it be? Mine would be SOS. Same old shit.
Yeah.
Right. And really, that's what it comes down to, because we didn't learn from our past mistakes. Right. And we thought that Canales would be able to at least give us a little bit of something, right? From year one to year two to year two to year three, whatever it is, we're going to have some growth. And we're going to have some understanding and learning from our past mistakes.
Yep.
Or else, what is that the definition of? It's the definition of insanity. We still doing the same old thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yep.
We're still doing the same old thing in the offseason, expecting different results. It doesn't work that way. And that's why I was adamant about, not sure when we talked to Joe Person about who is Dave Canales as a leader, right? I don't see the fieriness. I don't see not everybody has to be like that. But now that if you're not that, then what are you? You better be a cerebral guy that understands and learns from their mistakes and changes things. As a coach, your responsibility is have the team prepared to make sure that they're going to be healthy, to make sure that they're going to be ready to take on the four quarters, whether it's the heat, whether it's the noise, whatever it may be. You have to have them ready for situations within each and every game with, the situational football that's presented.
And, they also had basically 2 halftimes. I mean, he had an hour and a half weather delay to reset the pins, communicate with the guys, get things back online, and it didn't work. And then they had halftime and it didn't work. Like it just is amazing to me that the same issues with getting the plays in are still there in game one, when last year it was an issue the majority of the year.
And let's not forget, right? The Panthers, I think the expectations that we get as fans changes because they get a new toy, right? And that new toy is going to change this team from being a 6 to an 8 or a 9. Bryce Young, with the way he played last year, right? We all thought that was just going to carry over into this year. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're starting to find out a little bit more of the true, character of these guys. And I don't say character, the true identity of these guys and who they are. Right. They're consistently inconsistent. Right. And they're not learning from their mistakes. We don't have, all year to go out there. You have to win the games that you have a chance to win. And I guess for a lot of the teams in the NFL, they think that's every game. But the reality of it is the Jacksonville Jaguars picked before you. So throughout an entire season, the way you judge is by where you're drafting. And they drafted before us. So for all people out there that think that that was a worse team than us, even though they beat us last year, the perception is that that's a worse team than the Panthers. The Panthers should have a chance to win that game. There's no chance in that game for the Panthers. They got beat from the first quarter to the break to every play after that. I never felt during that entire game that we were going to win that game. I didn't feel like we had a chance.
The first half, I thought that, we come down, we get a field goal, tie the game at 3-3, and then the next drive they go down and score a touchdown.
We never had any momentum.
The play game that I thought that could have created the momentum that I thought, and again, we're going to talk about Bryce in particular here in a minute. I feel like the pass that Bryce underthrew Renfro when he was wide open down the sideline, that's a touchdown. And Bryce, a couple of those. And he did. Bryce underthrew him. And if we score there, we're in the game. We got some momentum. Maybe the defense can come out and make a stop. And again, we'll talk about the defense as well. But let's go to Bryce Young, because on X and all the other social media outlets, there's a lot of different varying opinions on how Bryce Young played yesterday. I thought Bryce Young yesterday, if I had to give him a letter grade, I'd probably give him a C. And the reason I'd give him a C is because I felt that he made some great throws that were dropped. Sanders had a big drop. Leggett had the bonehead play when he had plenty of time to get both feet in and didn't get his feet in. And we'll talk about Leggett as well, because I want to dive into that. But I thought that there were some drops. The interception that he threw that Dowdle should have had that went right in his hands, and he booted it up in the air, and Jacksonville made the pick. The other
about the low throw that he really didn't have any other options.
Yeah,
so
but
he had to throw the ball.
Yeah, and he threw it right to the running back and it hit his hands and went in the air. That was not on Bryce. Now, the first interception he threw, you and I differed on that. I felt that he was covered, shouldn't threw it there. You felt the safety just broke and made a great play on it.
No, I felt it was bad design within the play, right? Mm-hmm. So when you look at that route and you have one guy running a streak with two players on him and the other guy coming as a dig or an outcut, those two players were aligned. There was no spacing between them. So that one player that's sloughing off playing the double team can read the route and see who's coming open and jump that route, knowing he's kind of robbering.
Mm-hmm.
He's baiting to see if that quarterback is going to try to throw that route, and he jumped it.
Yep.
Right. Good play by the defense. Terrible design by the offense because the spacing wasn't great enough where that guy couldn't make that play because the timing of everything was what Bryce saw. He made the right read. The safety that came off or the inside player came off, jumped that play. Bad design, right?
You're saying that the receiver that was going deeper was too close to Leggett as he made it come across. So the safety saw the ball and just jumped right off of him.
Right. Or they were baiting him. They saw this whole play developing. If I'm looking from the back, I see this guy crossing my route, and I have the ability to go jump that route because I know I have help deep.
Mm-hmm.
So I can play, in essence, both routes. They're both covered, right? So Bryce made the right read, right, with the design of that play. That deep player is supposed to draw those guys off so that underneath route is coming open, which it was. The safety made a good play. But again, bad design, bad route, bad execution, right? All of those things apply, within that. Now, the defensive player made a great play. You chalk one up to them, but I don't think it was a bad throw or bad read. And I don't think that I'm not putting the onus on Bryce on that because I think he did with what he was supposed to do with the design of that play.
Well, Bryce, if we want to look at some positives on Bryce, and I want to get your grade for Bryce too, but I thought Bryce scrambled very well. I think he didn't get enough credit.
Your quarterback.
Listen, on this offense, you need whatever the hell you can get, and I feel like his scrambling ability is underestimated. And I felt that he had some big runs there. Thought he could have had a couple more maybe that he didn't run on after the fumble in particular. When he fumbled the ball, which was a big play in the game as well, because we were driving down at the end of the half.
Ball security has been a big issue for Bryce Young,
no doubt,
because of his lack of size. The ball.
And he usually is very good about getting down before he takes a hit. In that instance, he was just a tad too late.
When he has the ability to see the play coming and developing, yes. When he doesn't, right, there's no ball security, and there's not enough strength to be able to hold the ball with your hands or whatever it might be. Players have knocking that ball out too consistently. Where if you're a big guy, and I'm not going to compare him to Cam or a guy like Josh Allen, compared to a guy like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson doesn't fumble the ball because he's strong with it in his hands as he's running, able to throw the ball, able to tuck it. He can feel and sense when guys are going to hit him and he's coming into a pile. Then you see the security. Bryce doesn't quite feel those things yet. So if you're going to be a scrambling quarterback, you still have to be able to protect the ball because you turn into a running back.
Yep.
And running backs, if that guy was fumbling, what would we be saying about him? We'd be criticizing him. He can't hold on to the ball. Well, if that's going to be your quarterback, if Justin Fields is going to run with the ball and he fumbles it every other time when he gets hit and not looking, right, then we're going to say he shouldn't be running the ball, right? Yep. Get rid of him. He can't run the ball. All right. Same thing applies for Bryce. So I can't excuse those things, because those aren't little things. Those are turnovers.
No doubt. I mean, Bryce had 3 turnovers yesterday, and even if you don't give the 2 interceptions to Bryce, which one of them you definitely don't, still 3 turnovers right there. When you're failing to score points. The 2 of the turnovers were when we were driving, and especially the fumble. Like I said, that was at the end of the half. We were driving down the field. Our field goal kicker, who, I guess was a bright spot. He was 1 for 1 with a 48-yard field goal on his first ever attempt. You'd like to at least get him a shot at it. So that fumble hurt, and they actually had time, so they could have made more. So, they could have maybe went down and got a touchdown. What was your grade for Bryce yesterday?
I'm going to grade him more based on his pocket play and, just being able to step up and work within that and throwing. He was 50%. Right, throwing the ball. I think he was
18 for 35 for 154 yards, a touchdown,
and 2 picks. A little over 50%, right? A little 51%, whatever it was. But he had 2 picks and he had a fumble.
Yep.
Right. He also missed 3 throws that were game-changing throws.
The Renfro one for sure. Underthrew him, and he was wide open.
Underthrown balls where all you have to do is put a little air under it, let him run underneath that, and go out there and make a play. He had some good plays as well. But my overall grade is probably going to be, it's hard, but my expectations for Bryce is the number 1 overall pick to have success for this team. If he's going to be the guy and make other guys around him better, throw the ball and make those plays and those throws when you have to, because you only get about a handful of plays, DJ, in the NFL. what I like about college, you're going to have maybe 2 handfuls. In high school, you're going to have multiple opportunities to make plays. In the NFL, because the competition is so tight, you have about 5 plays that you're going to say, gosh, I wish we had that back. Gosh, I wish he had that back. And I have about 3 of those on Bryce Young not throwing the ball properly.
Yeah.
A couple of them, the drop catch by Leggett, or not getting his 2 feet in. Right. That's another opportunity.
Sanders had a big drop.
Sanders had another big drop, which we don't know what happens after that. Right. And then, this is just talking the offensive side.
Sure.
We talk about the defense, missed tackles, turn into a first
we'll
down.
get to that. There's plenty of that.
We're just talking about what Bryce, I'd probably give him, with all those expectations on him, a D.
Okay, so I'd say you had a D. We both agree, though, that the loss you can't pin on his shoulders completely.
No.
A lot of people are trying to do that, and it's definitely not on Bryce Young.
No.
I would put it more on the coaching than anything. But
I would absolutely have, if I'm going to give the lion's share of responsibility and blame, everybody owns their piece of pie, right? I would say the offensive line on the offensive side owns probably the littlest. Chuba owns probably. I would say Chuba and Tet probably. Or the least a bit response. I mean, they could have helped win, but they didn't. They weren't the reason why. If you're asking the reason why we lost, it was lack of preparation.
Yep.
It was lack of continuity and lack of execution.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the 3 things, and the people responsible for those are coaching staffs and quarterbacks, and then the wide receivers fall into that, knowing where they're going to be with the execution of the play.
Well, Ted McMillan, you brought him up, first game in the NFL, first round pick, obviously a lot of expectations on him.
There was another throw to him that was underthrown that he went up. He was by the defender, but he had to go up and slow down to try to high top it. The defender made a great play. Yeah, and he almost came down with it anyway.
He did. I thought Tet played great. 5 catches, 68 yards. He also
had about 8 times.
I think it was 11 times maybe. But he also had the pass interference that he drew down there where he almost made a crazy catch. And then the one in the end zone that, Canales kind of alluded to the fact that, great players make great plays like that. And he almost had it. But I thought Tet played great for his first game. Now let's move to our first round pick the year before that, and Xavier Leggett. Up and down year last year, had some drops, some injuries. So I think a lot of us were excited to see him yesterday. He worked his butt off all offseason. Everything you read and all the things you see, he definitely worked his butt off. But man, I could not have been more disappointed in him. Wrong place on route certain times. The lack of field awareness when he didn't get his feet down, when just a marginal receiver in the NFL would get his feet down on that just no awareness of where he was on the field. And again, Canales talked about that a little bit after the game. But
what was his comments with that?
He basically said the same thing. He said, look, great players have field awareness and they're going to make plays. And you know what?
They're also practice and are put in positions to succeed. So you can't just blame the player on that. I
disagree. Come on, dude. He's a wide receiver. He's been doing it his whole life. You have to have field awareness to know to get your feet in.
I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm not saying he deserves the majority of that blame. But if you're not practicing situations and or those types of catches religiously, like, okay, this is gonna be an out route.
But we don't know that they're not practicing. I mean, you got to believe that they are. I mean, and again, that to me is just instinct. That's instinct as a receiver. That's the biggest
reason why we're losing this game is because lack of preparation.
Well, that could be true. That's a valid point. But to me, instinct in a receiver.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
You got to get your feet down, and he had plenty of time. It wasn't like he had to make some miraculous ballerina toe tap.
That is a college level catch,
100%, and it was a perfect throw, and that was a big play in the game as well. So
it's having the body control and the confidence to catch the ball, being able to run underneath it, right? And that's where he's dropped a lot of those passes last year. So if I'm a coach, and I have a player that I know doesn't have a lot of awareness to make those types of plays, you know what I'm going to try to do? I'm going to try to get him the ball, in space. I'm going to try to get him the ball running drags. I'm going to try to hit the ball, in stride, where he's going. And now he can become a 220-pound running back, with a 10-yard start. Right. I'm not going to ask him to run out cuts and digs and the plays that have, great footwork and, have the ability to do with, good wide receiver, burst out of the cuts. He's not that type of player. He's a Muhsin Muhammad who should be using his body to run drags, running across the field, catching it and running through tackles or running by linebackers. But that's where he needs to make his money. Coaches aren't putting him in those positions.
No, they didn't throw deep to him one time yesterday.
It's not even deep. Those are 8-yard drags.
Yeah.
10-yard drags.
Yeah.
Those are slants across the field, right? Those are little quick passes where you got to go use your body to get it between the defender and make a play with your hands. Let
me ask you this. So if you're coaching the Panthers, now, again, it's week 1, right? And every fan who loses yesterday overreacts on week 1.
I don't think this is overreaction.
Well, I'm not saying we're overreact. But my point is, a lot of fans think, okay, the season's over, and oh my God, we suck. And so there is some overreaction. Now, you've got a week to get ready to go to Arizona, who beat the Saints yesterday. Arizona is a much improved team. If you're the coach, how long do you wait? And again, we don't even know how many choices he has when it comes to this, but do you send a message? Obviously in practice this week, you sent a message, but I think it was Robert Hunt after the game, our offensive lineman, I think it was him that said, they asked him about what Canales said after the game. And he basically said, look, we don't need any more rah-rah speeches. We don't need any more talks. We need to get out there and play and everyone needs to do what they're supposed to do. Everybody, coaches and players. Mm-hmm. We don't need any more rah-rah talk. And I totally agree with him. And I love to hear that he said that. But as the head coach, you're going into this game against Arizona. How long do you now wait to take Leggett out if he's in the wrong place or things like that? I mean, again, they're limited on their choices. I mean, you did see Bryson Tremaine in there a little bit yesterday, who they're high on, and I think
he had a couple of drops too.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, what do you do? Jimmy Horn Jr. wasn't active for this game, and I'm not saying he's ready either. Obviously, when you're a late round pick and rookie. But my point is, if you're Canales here and you're going to be the head coach and the leader, and you're going to send a message, and they don't want to hear these rah-rah talks anymore, the way you can send a message now is putting people's butts on the bench, even if maybe your choice of who you replace them with is not great. Now, I'm not saying you do that. That's a week 1 overreaction, but how long do you wait to do that?
I mean, he's a first-round pick.
Yep.
Right? He has all the upside in the world. I would lean more on, let's put this guy in a position. Let's take the onus and the pressure off, and let's put this guy in a position where he doesn't have to, beat guys one-on-one. He's just going to run a crossing route. And it's up to the quarterback if he wants to involve him or not, but he has to be ready for the ball if it comes. Is he going to be in the right position? Is he going to run the right route? Is he going to is he going to block good? Yeah, you still have to have him out there because he's a big physical guy. Mm-hmm. When it comes to blocking down on inside linebackers, we're going to put him in that slot. But he's not a scat guy, so don't put him in scat guy role.
Right.
He's a guy that's going to use his body and run across the field and put him in position. I would put the onus on my coaching staff and my coordinator for calling plays that are going to help isolate those types of routes for him. And then if he can't do those, now we're starting to talk, okay, what is he good at?
Right?
He's not consistent with this. He's not consistent. Quarterbacks start losing trust with guys like that. And I would say that's not a year 1 thing. That's not a year 2 thing when you're a first rounder, because you have all the upside. I think if that continues to happen, the quarterback won't go to him as much, but I think that year 3 is really when you make those decisions. Not now during the season. You made the decision to go with him, so you can't just give up on guys.
Well, Mark Schlereth made a point during the game yesterday. I don't know if you heard it, but it was after he didn't get his feet in, mm-hmm. and then there was another play where he was loafing, kind of not getting in on the block.
Well, those are things that you cut yourself. Those are if we turn on the film, and your attitude sucks and your effort isn't good, right? Nobody else controls those but the player.
Yeah.
So if you're pouting because you didn't get your feet in and you start loafing, that's a whole different thing, because I can't allow that culture to exist. And if you're a star player, to let you loaf.
Yep.
Right. That's incumbent upon the coaches. And that's what the one thing that we don't know about Canales and his style is that when he sees those things happening, what's the consequences?
Yep.
Right. You're not going to be allowed to loaf. You are the example. And it's like having a big brother. And all the little siblings are looking at their big brother or big sister. Big sisters are worse because they don't do any wrong. And the boys, we're all hell raisers, and we're always going to be in trouble.
Yep.
Girls, why can't you be more like your sister, right? That's the example, right? So younger boys that have an older sister, They're going to usually probably be respectful. They're going to, do the little things to help the girls out. They're going to have to live up to a higher standard because sister's doing well in school and she's, the straight A student and everybody, all the things that go along with that. Well, the same thing when you're the big brother football player. If you're the star, you're like the big brother. Everybody's looking up to see what is he allowed to do. If he's not going to get away with it, then, am I going to get in trouble if I don't? Maybe, I don't know, but it opens that up for possibility. But I can't allow a guy to slough off or slack or pout and then expect him to be, the leader
and count on him
and
when
count
you need
on
to.
him when the going gets hard.
Yep.
Right. So, that's I have to, for the betterment of the team, make a decision if that's the attitude. And that's the problem when you see. A lot of these entitled players, now, a little bit more than we've seen in years past, when they get cut or they get released or they get traded, i.e., the guy that was at the Steelers that goes
Deontay
from
Johnson.
Oh no, the ghost
Pickens.
When Pickens gets gone, the Steelers get better at receiver, right? Because that culture doesn't exist. The stupid plays, the bad habits, the sulkiness, the lack of effort in practice don't exist anymore. So the standard raises because these guys might not be as good, but everybody's going to be playing a lot harder.
Yeah, and we're not saying that Leggett is we're not saying he doesn't work harder.
No.
For all intents and purposes, he does. Likable guy, works his butt off. But yesterday when he had a couple of dumb plays and then they showed him loafing a little bit.
Those are lessons that I
he's got to take
as a
with
coach, I bring to you, or even as a veteran player, say, listen, buddy, I put my arm around you and said, we need you.
Yep.
We can't have you letting that one play beat us twice.
Yep.
And those are little things, that you learn as a young player in the NFL. I had a bad habit of that. I get beat, or if, somebody made a play, you want to rage and you want to do things out of control and you want to kill somebody, you want to hit them harder, but you lose your technique and you lose your cool sometimes, and you do something, and that one play beats you twice because you're not used to losing. When you come from college, you're used to just showing up and being more athletic and better than everybody else.
Yep.
When you get to the pros, guess what? Those guys are pretty good too. And that's where the mental part of the toughness comes into, okay, you got me this time, but I'm going to get you the next three.
Yep. By the way, if you're watching this live right now and you want to comment, we'd love to hear from you. If you go to YouTube, you can comment there. Nico from Neogenics sent us a comment, loving the breakdown today of the game. Thank you, Nico. Neogenics, obviously one of our favorite places. We've both been treated there and have helped us quite a bit.
Maybe the Panthers. Who's the guy that got hurt that needs to go? Maybe they need to go to Neogenics.
They need to go to a lot of places, I think. But, let's – and I want to say one thing about Tet off your point there. Yeah. In the preseason, we saw Tet in the first game, should have had a touchdown. He didn't get around fast enough. They said that was part of the issue.
What happened in week 2?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. You saw some of the in practice, they said he struggled with that during camp, but he got better. I think it was the first pass he caught yesterday, maybe the second, where
Schleff made the comment, and so did you, right off. And you made the comment first. Schleff, repeated what you saw him
get around, and you see that he's learning. And I was very impressed with Tet yesterday. The one thing that's going to be interesting is as we move forward, after people have film on Tet now, are they going to start doubling him now, which should help Leggett? It should help Renfro, because Renfro we haven't talked about much either.
Renfro was open.
He was open, and the two passes that he dropped, if you want to call them drops, he got crushed.
They were
hospital balls. Yeah. Like he wasn't going to hold on. No one was really going to hold on.
Well, the one he caught over the middle. I mean, the defender made a great play, put his helmet right on the ball.
Yep.
Right. And I made the comment. 20 years ago, that pass would have never been thrown because that guy had been in the hospital. That's right. A hospital ball.
It's a hospital ball.
Guys like Ronnie Lott would have decapitated him. Dawkins for the Eagles would have decapitated those guys.
Yep.
Polamalu would have decapitated Renfro, and he would have been going to the hospital with broken ribs and maybe a concussion.
Yep.
Now, quarterbacks can throw those balls because those players can't have the violence with those hits. So those windows are there a lot more regularly. Now, again, that's a risk that defensive player took by launching into the ball or launching into the player. but that risk was worth the reward because it knocked
the ball out.
He lodged the ball from Renfro, who had to catch.
Yep, and Renfro, like I said, he was open. Would have been a touchdown if Bryce led him with the ball. He underthrew it. He had another great catch that Bryce threw too far out of bounds, where Renfro still came down with it, but out of bounds. So I think Renfro is going to be just fine.
Renfro was not a reason why we lost why we lost that.
I thought he's not going to be an issue.
What would be the answer this, right? Because we talked about the offense for the most part. What's the number one reason that we lost this game?
My number one is totally, I thought that they were unprepared, and I thought the play calling was very predictable. And I'll tell you this too, what makes it worse. You're coaching against a first-time head coach in his first ever game. So you want to talk about cohesiveness. This is the first time this dude has done it with these players. It's the first time he's been a head coach, and they look very well prepared. They made very good adjustments. And that, to me, shows again that Canales is lacking in that. And again, I'm not saying that look, it's too early to judge Canales. There's a lot of things I like about him, but the one thing last year that bothered me is the same thing that bothered me yesterday, is getting the doggone plays in on time and being prepared and making adjustments. And I felt we failed in all three phases of those yesterday. And that's just on the offensive side of the ball. So now let's move to the defensive side of the ball.
Let me just say something about the adjustments. It's tough to make adjustments when I don't have things to adjust to, because we can't even do the little things. So what are we going to adjust? Mm-hmm. If I can't trust you to do the basic things, how can we expect you to do the harder things?
That's a valid point. But being prepared and getting the plays in on time.
That's I don't disagree with that. Now, 100%, if I had to say the biggest reason why we lost this game was lack of discipline and preparation. Mm-hmm. Right? Those would be the two things, the words that I describe that why – we put ourselves behind the eight ball too many times.
Well, I agree. And on the defensive side of the ball, which we haven't dove into yet, a lot made in the offseason. We bring in, 4 or 5 free agents. We make the defensive line a lot more stout than it had been. We get Derek Brown back. J.C. Horn, new contract, and we're excited about him. Re-sign Mike Jackson, who I thought played solid yesterday. We bring in Morrig at safety, who I thought played solid yesterday. But the one thing that you and there's a couple. First of all, we wanted to stop the run, right? And there was times where you could see Turk Wharton, for instance, early in the game, hit Etienne in the backfield, knocked him back about 10 feet. But then they go for it on 4th and 1 and they get it. There was times where it did look as if the run defense, at least the defensive line, was getting better penetration against the run. But then there's times where they give up a 70-yard run to Etienne. They give up several long runs to Etienne. Now, what I wanted to ask you about when it comes to the run defense is this. You have been on record, I've been on record, but you have been all over this, is the linebackers for the Panthers and how you feel we have none. Mm-hmm. So I said to you, I don't disagree, but hopefully the Rose Boom that played for the Rams last year that had 135 tackles is going to be an improvement. Hopefully Trevin Wallace, the rookie last year that got thrown into the fire earlier than anyone wanted, was going to show some progression. They said in camp he looked very good. I thought Wallace yesterday looked awful. I don't know what his grade was, but I thought he looked out of position quite a bit. I can't tell you how many times I saw him chasing the running back from behind because he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And this is times where there were no bodies on him. Okay, this wasn't because the offensive line beat the defensive line and got to the linebackers. This was times where they were being able to run around. Roseboom had 7 tackles yesterday, but the same thing. He got beat on several passes.
That's a lack of consistency.
Jacksonville's tight ends look like freaking Kellen Moore. It was ridiculous. But as far as the defense goes, let's start with positives, okay? Because we're going to have a much longer list of what they didn't do right. Again, I thought, Jimmy Horn Jr. played great.
J.C. Horn,
J.C. Horn played great. Brian Thomas Jr., who's one of the best receivers in football, was held in check the entire game. He did have the one run they did on the little trick play or whatever you want to call it down at the goal line where he ran in and didn't have a defender within 30 yards of him, it appeared. But J.C. Horn played great, in my opinion. I thought Mike Jackson played solid. I mean, gave up a couple balls, but I thought he played pretty well. Morrig is exactly what they said Morrig was going to be, a tough, hard-nosed dude, made some great tackles down in the box. Nice attitude. I was surprised, however, and bothered. And I'm going to start with the negatives now. Nick Scott couldn't play safety last year. He got beat and beat and beat and beat. And if you picked one defensive player last year that if the fans had to vote was the worst defensive player on that team last year, I think Nick Scott would probably win that poll every single time. Yesterday, it was the same Nick Scott. Well, you've got Damian Richardson on the bench, who was an undrafted rookie last year, who played pretty well when he got in there. And then you draft Latham Ransom out of Ohio State, who, again, hard-hitting, thumper, attitude. Those two guys barely played. I think Richardson might have had 9 snaps and Ransom somewhere around there. Scott was in the game the majority of the time. To me, on a defense that has to stop the run, and you've got a guy like Ransom that's his calling card, is stop the run, getting up in the box. You even referred to him as almost like another linebacker. Mm-hmm. When you can't stop the run, why is he not in the game? Richardson is solid against the run, maybe a little better in coverage. Neither one of them are great in coverage. But my point is, I was very surprised that Ransom in particular didn't get more reps yesterday, and when the game was meaning something.
Well, here's my problem with the defense, right? How many times in the current NFL do you see a team have a bigger average rushing the football than throwing the football? Right?
Very rarely.
Very, very rarely. The Jaguars average rush was 6 yards a carry, 6.2 or something like that a carry. It was 6 yards a carry. Their average pass was 5.7.
Yep.
If you can't stop the run, they ran for 200 yards, DJ.
Yep.
200 yards.
Now, I think two of those were...
Doesn't matter.
No, I know, but I'm saying I think two of those were...
Big plays.
At the end, he had the 71-yard run, and then he had like a 20-30. So
even worse. Splash plays,
and the
plays.
And the 71-yard run came after the Panthers pinned them on like the 1 or 2 yard line, and you're trying to get some momentum, and he breaks the very first play.
You can't win if you can't stop basic plays. If you look at, the great defenses, and I'm not saying the Panthers are great, right? But if you look at the great defenses over time, whether it's the Broncos in 15, whether it's the Ravens in 03, 04, those teams, the Bucks back in the day, they didn't give up big plays, right? They didn't give up splash plays. They didn't give up those big plays. They were solid tacklers. They had playmakers, and they had speed, right? Our tackling is bad. Our speed is worse. And you can't tackle what you can't catch. So guess what? You're going to get 6 yards a carry every time you play the Panthers if you can't correct those things, right? Regardless of the passing game, right? What happens in the passing game? They didn't lose this game because Trevor Lawrence went out there and torched them.
No, he didn't.
He didn't. I mean, they were less than 500 on third down. So the defense did a better job of getting off the field. But you can't allow big plays, and you can't allow gash plays. If I'm constantly on 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 5 less, I'm going to have success to get a first down, right? You're not going to get off the field because the whole playbook continues to stay open. If you're not stopping guys on first down, running the ball and putting them in 2nd and long, you're not going to be good on defense. There's not one time that I look at in that first down that said the Panthers have a chance. Maybe 2 or 3 times during the entire game, but not nearly enough. That should be probably 70% of the time if you're going to have a good defense, maybe even more, that you're stopping guys for 1 to 2 yard gains on first down and putting them in passing situations on 2nd down, right? And then finding out if you can make a play in passing. That's where you're going to see, good teams, make plays on that 2nd down because they have playmakers or guys. They're going to put them in 3rd and 8, right? They're going to put some pressure on them with their front. They didn't sniff the quarterback yesterday. They didn't sniff with a 4-man rush. There wasn't one of those guys that sat there and said, I'm going to beat you one-on-one. I didn't hear Derek Brown's name called.
Yeah, I mean, he was, I think in the second half, he had a few plays, but you're right. We didn't hear his name called much. The new guys, Turk Wharton flashed a couple times, but that was it. Bobby Brown, didn't hear his name any. Our ends. Let's talk about that for a minute. You mentioned
what ends? We played with ends. We had defensive ends out there.
Exactly. I mean, last year we got no pressure on the quarterback, so Wanham actually played well the second half of the year. He started on one side, Pat Jones Jr. On the other, guy we brought in from Minnesota. Again, no pressure at all. Were you surprised, like I was, that we didn't see more of the 2 rookies, Scorton and Newman Nealon? I think Scorton had maybe 11 to 15 plays, and they were all pretty much in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. Princely, I think maybe 7 or 8.
I don't know what their role is, and I don't know what their capability is on stopping the run.
Right. Scoring's supposed to be solid.
I think those guys were drafted more to bring pressure. If you can slow guys down on first down, which we didn't. The leading tackle yesterday was Morwig, who was our safety, right? He had 7 tackles.
Yep. And Rose
is that a good thing or bad thing? When the safeties are making all the tackles,
it's not
that
good.
means everybody's doing what?
Yeah,
that means the running back is getting through to all the way through the line, the linebackers, all the way to the safety. Right? That's not a good thing when the safety is leading your team. And it may be okay if you have them stuffed in the box
and he does play that
2-yard game.
And he does play that kind of safety. I mean, last year had 100 tackles with the Raiders because they played him up as like a quasi linebacker, and they did that a lot with him yesterday. But you're right.
How many times did he make those tackles after the running back was already the 6 or 7 yards?
Absolutely.
Right. He did his job. Right. He was a bright spot, if you will, when it comes to the defense. But I'm looking for our leader, who's Derek Brown. I don't see. There he is, right there. He had 3 tackles. He had 4. He had 4, 1 assist and 3 solo. Right. No pressure. No tackles for loss. And that's the thing when you look at these stats that stand out throughout the game. We had 1 tackle for loss, and I think that was the sack that we got. Did we get a sack?
Well, I thought that Alshon Robinson had a sack in the first half, but when I looked at the numbers, they did not credit him. So Lawrence must have got over the line.
No, 0 sacks.
Yeah, no sacks.
0 sacks accredited to the Panthers against a team that threw the ball 36 times. 0 sacks.
I mean, same story as last year.
6 yards a carry. Where did this defense get better?
Well, and I'll tell you what, against Arizona,
a lot of money.
Kyler Murray, you're not facing a statue back there against Kyler Murray. You're facing a guy that's going to run his butt off. So that's the fact that we had 0 sacks against Jacksonville and they threw the ball that many times is alarming.
And again, let's remind you, Jacksonville picked B4. That means their team was supposed to be worse than the Panthers. Did they get better? They probably are still scratching. I don't know if we got better. We just played the Panthers, right? Or how good are they?
Yeah.
Right. So what's our measuring stick with? Did we do? Well, they did what they were supposed to. They handled the Panthers, right? They never really felt like they were going to lose that game. Your quarterback got some confidence. He did his thing. He had some nice throws. Probably had a couple more that he could have made, or that could have been gone the other way. That's going to happen. Those are going to balance out. But for the most part, they manhandled the things and the units that are supposed to be the strongest of this team, right? They beat us up on the offense. Our offensive line played okay. We did the best on the offense, right? But Chuba Hubbard had a couple. When you get behind, you have to throw the ball. But the defensive line, they were non-existent.
Yep.
And how much of our money went to the defensive side of the ball? How many of our draft choices, other than McMillan, went to the defensive side of the ball? Where did this defense get better?
Yeah, and again, it's one game, and we don't want to just overreact, but we can only go off what we saw yesterday.
That wasn't the Buffalo Bills. That wasn't the Kansas City Chiefs. That wasn't the Philadelphia Eagles. That wasn't the teams. It's only going to get harder.
That's for sure.
Yes.
And so let me ask you this, because I've seen on X and some of the social media outlets, I've seen a lot of fans saying, why are the Panthers even playing the 3-4 defense? They it's not working. It didn't work last year. And so let me ask you to change to a 4-3 with the players that we have available. Does it make sense? Do we have the players, and what would that consist of to even make that change?
It puts the onus on the linebackers, in particular the middle linebackers, to be better cover guys when you're playing a 4-3. You have to have guys like Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis, or have that third guy that's going to be in there that that can cover a tight end. It's a big body guy. You can cover with that Will back or out in space, the backs out of the backfield or tight ends. That Sam, who's going to be lined up on that strong side, is going to be directly over that tight end, and he has to be able to match up with him. You got to have a middle linebacker that can go sideline to sideline. These guys can't run from tackle to tackle.
Right.
So what makes us think that going to a 4-3, they're going to start running sideline to sideline? You have to have good corners. They're going to play that press coverage and are good tacklers. They're going to be able to set the edge, when it comes to playing that cover 2. 2. They're going to be able to jam and be physical. We have a guy like that.
Yeah, I think our corners.
I think Horn is a guy that can play a 4-3 much better. And your safeties have to be able to be guys that are going to be able to tackle well and cover over the top with speed, right?
Yeah.
And also play that box player, drop down in the box and able to play that run pass. I think we have that guy in Morwig that can play that. I think he's a guy that can play the 4-3. We don't have a middle linebacker that can cover the deep third, right? When it comes to cover 2, that Tampa cover 2 is that those safeties are going to slough over the top to kind of, keep everything in front, but also not allow those things over the top. That means a middle linebacker has to run like Luke Kuechly. You saw him against Gronk multiple times, one-on-one, where he's going to try to make that play or Gronk's going to make the play, but that's his coverage responsibilities, in that Tampa cover 2 where that guy's running the seam, and teams are going to take advantage of that. We don't have a guy that can cover me or you, and I can't even walk out of the backfield. So what makes us think we're going to cover, pretty decent tight ends that coaches are going to have prepared to run those plays. So on the next thing that you have, I think we have Derek Brown as a 3 technique that can create havoc if allowed, right? Warren Sapp was what Tampa did. He could be that explosive guy. He could be, a guy that's going to be, but you have to have a nose guard that's going to be able to sit and hold the point.
Well, they got Bobby Brown, who's supposed to be that. I mean, I'm not saying he is, but
what's his name?
Bobby Brown was
Bobby Brown, like singer. Didn't he in jail?
He was very good against the run last year. And Alshon Robinson as well was very good against the run.
Bobby Brown had 3 tackles, 2 assists, 1 solo. They average 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They average 6 yards a carry.
I'm with you.
That's
and if you do a 4-3,
did they do their job?
I mean,
no
one on the defensive line did their job. I mean, there's no doubt. Regardless, that's
6 yards a carry.
That's my point. Is the people who are saying they need to go to a 4-3. Also, in a 4-3, your ends. Your outside, your weak side end has got to be an explosive player that's going to be able. The kid for Cincinnati, Hendrickson. He's got to be a long guy that's going to be able to create havoc. Who's the guy that we had? Jared Allen, Julius Peppers. Those guys you have to be able to play that. And 4-3. We don't have that.
We don't have those. I mean, one of these young kids that we drafted could turn into that.
Maybe.
But when you're playing a 3-4 defense, and that's going to be you draft towards your 3-4 defense. You put players in position to have.
Yet they didn't draft a middle linebacker, which still in the last 2 years.
Those middle backers in a 3-4 are more plug guys.
Right.
They're going to be hard nosed, play the run in the traditional 3-4. The way they play 3-4 now is kind of a bastardized 4-3. They can shift linebackers. It gives them more flexibility. Those types of things to run zone blitzes and do a lot of different things on the defense. But if that's the case, you can't do the little things right. What makes you think you're going to be able to be dynamic and do all these other things if you can't do the basic things right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's why I got into it with a few different guys on that, just saying, that sounds great, but do they even have the players for that? Right now, this team, as of the first game, again, they may come out next week and maybe they do make adjustments. And maybe we do see, the Derek Brown from 2 years ago.
What adjustments are they going to make?
Well, I have no idea. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You have to hope that Evero, who, has been the defensive coordinator here now for 3 years, I believe, hasn't had much talent any of those 3 years, but he has had, top 5, top 10 defenses in the past.
Why?
Because he had players.
That's right.
That's not the deal. You have to have players.
What's the adage? It's never the X's and O's. It's always the Jimmies and the Joes.
Yep.
Right. In this case, we have Jimmies and Hoes.
Well, I tell you this: that as a Panther fan, it was almost like Groundhog Day yesterday because I felt I was watching the same team from the first half of the season last year.
That's my question. Where did they improve?
And now on offense,
and that's where you go back to GJ. What you just said right there, I think is the most spot on thing, and really the thing that we should, and people should be concerned about, is that where did we learn from our mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
Right? As a coaching staff, where did we learn? What did we take into year 2? I have Bryce Young now. I know who he is as a quarterback. I know what his strengths are. I know what his weaknesses are. I know he has a whole new young group around him with Tet and Renfro, and maybe doesn't have the same security blanket that he has with Thielen. But Thielen was not going to win that game. If we had Adam Thielen out there, he's not going to be a reason. He's not going to be a difference maker why we win or lose that game.
100%.
He's just a guy that's going to go make maybe another 1 or 2 catches. He's going to be Bryce Young's go-to security blanket. Leggett has got to step up.
Yep.
Tet has got to have more impact. I mean, his catches were nice catches, but they weren't impactful catches. They weren't big plays. They weren't over the top home run catches. They weren't catch the ball, make somebody miss, and scare the living daylights out of a defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to keep these guys in front of us. We're going to jam them. We're going to put our big guys on their big guys, and we're going to play ball, and we're going to stuff the line and force these guys to throw the ball.
Well, it's three opening day starts now for Bryce Young. He's thrown 2 interceptions in all 3 of them.
Quarterback rating.
Oh, I didn't even
over the three games.
It's not good. And
so what makes, if that's the case, right?
You're getting ready to hit on exactly my point.
If we know, and you're Canales, and you know that not okay, we'll make the exceptions. It's rookie year, things were moving fast. Year 2, what changed? They had to bench him. Now we're going into year 3 and things haven't changed. What's the problem? Well, what's the common denominator?
The one thing that I would say
Bryce Young is one. Bryce Young is a part of this.
No doubt.
And number 2 is we're not putting this guy in position to grow or learn and be prepared so that he can just pick up where he left off for last year.
100%. And, the thing that I also thought, we should point out is if you know that Bryce struggled the first 2 games of his first 2 seasons, wouldn't you think that you would do everything you can to get him up to game speed so that you start season 3 with some tempo and play him in preseason more than 6 throws and let him get acclimated?
What was the game they pulled him out and said we saw Detroit? Was that the game here that we played where they played him like 2 plays and then yanked him, or they didn't play the starters?
It was a second I forget. Was it New England maybe? I don't remember.
The second preseason. Well, he got good work during practice.
Yeah, give me a break. The guy, you need him to start off like he finished last year. And by not putting him in game situations against other teams in preseason, you heard him on that.
Where practice isn't scripted. Because I have to keep re-emphasizing that. When you practice in the NFL, everything is scripted. Yep. If I'm a defensive player and you're an offensive player, you know what I want to do? I want to get in your hip. I want to ride the ball. I want to see the ball, but I ain't going up against you to make a play. You know why? Because they don't want us to get hurt. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times in games, you'll see those guys go up and challenge the ball and make a play on the ball. And the receiver's not used to fighting through hands or the body pulls or things like that. He's just used to going up there nice and easy without any expectations catching the ball. Mm-hmm. Now he has a hand hitting him. He's getting shoved. He's getting poked in the eyes. His face mask getting grabbed. What makes us think that so practice in the NFL is scripted.
Yep.
Right. When you get into games, things happen faster. Right. Communication that happens faster.
Yep.
If you're having to repeat the same call 3 times because some guy is not, you have to tell him, you specifically point him out, right? You have to give guys time to do that. So that dynamic is definitely missing for the Panthers.
Here's what I'll say about this game against Arizona, and then we'll move on to some of the other NFL games and some college. I hate to say that game 2 of a season is a huge game, but in my opinion, it is, because last year, if you remember, after Bryce got up to a bad start, game 2 is where the floodgates open, and then he got benched. This is a game to me that you've got to see Bryce take the team on his shoulders and make plays. Now, look, he can't do it by himself. Legette's going to have to freaking wake up. You're right. Tet's going to have to make a couple of those acrobatic catches that he almost hauled in. Canales is going to have to get the damn plays in where they have time to make changes at the line of scrimmage before they hike the ball, and not have to hike every ball at 0 seconds when everybody now is discombobulated or whatever. They've got to fix those things, but they've got to have a very good game on offense this next game against the Cardinals. Defense is a whole different ball game because who knows what we have on that side of the ball. But offensively, Bryce has got to have a big game.
Just to give us a chance.
Just to give us a chance.
I felt like, and I've tried to explain this in years past when teams are playing like the Jeff Davidson offenses and going back to 2011, when we played the Eagles last year, when we play Kansas City, when we play some of these top tier teams, the Panthers played hard, mm-hmm. right? And I'm going to give them credit for their effort. But other defenses, other teams, they get a touchdown lead against the Panthers. And you know what do they want to do? They want to waste the clock. They want to they want to control the tempo. Why? Because they don't feel like the Panthers have the ability or the firepower to beat them. So they play with these leads and then they pull back, trying to shorten the game. They're not going to risk getting hurt. They're not going to risk throwing the ball and having it tipped up in the air and the Panthers get some momentum. We're going to control the outcome, and we're going to punt the ball quite a bit. So what does that do for the Panthers defense? It makes them look pretty good, right? Because you know all they're going to do. But when a team decides we're going to open it up because we have to, i.e. the Chiefs, at the end of the game, i.e. the Eagles at the end of the game. When teams have to open it up, what happens? We just become a sift, right? Because that's really, in essence, what these teams could be doing a lot more regularly if they opened up their playbooks. But because they're playing conservative, it makes the defense look better than and it hides and masks a lot of the deficiencies and weaknesses that this team really does have.
And even the games in the last 8 games of the year, 10 games of the year, when the Panthers were playing tough, they could have beat Philly and Kansas City and Tampa and some of these teams. The offense was scoring points, right? And that, like you said,
that forced them to do what?
They had
score back.
Correct. And the Panthers offense, that's why I said I think this game is huge, because number one, if Bryce has I don't want to say another bad, because I thought he was okay this game, but if he has a bad game and we don't score,
what are you basing his average on? So I'm basing his average on being the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah,
I'm not basing his average just being a regular quarterback.
I'm basing it on putting the team on his shoulders and making plays. Now, you can't do it by yourself, but guess what? The great quarterbacks do. And if he's going to be a leader and be the quarterback of the future for this team and put this team in a position where they're not going to have to start scouting what quarterbacks are we going to draft in the draft next year, then he's got to put them on his shoulders. Yesterday, I felt this. I felt that Bryce made some great throws. I thought he had some drops that were on the money. I thought the defense for Jacksonville made some good plays on some good balls. I also thought he missed several, including the one to Renfro, which is an easy touchdown. I thought he made a bonehead decision to throw the ball out of the end zone on 4th and goal. I don't care who was in the wrong place or not. You try to get a touchdown there or make a pass interference or something. To me, that almost made me think, did he not know it was 4th down? Like he threw it 20 yards out of the end zone. Right. And so, I need to see him step up and be, you mentioned when he slammed his helmet down and was pissed off because somebody was in the wrong place, whatever the case may be.
It was just the frustration of the lack of execution. I think is what the reporters asked him after the game. And he commented on that. Was that because of somebody wasn't, and he wouldn't throw anybody on the bus, but he said, he took onus. I'm responsible, but we have to have people executing.
Here's what I want,
myself included.
And here's what I want to see from Bryce. And we saw glimpses. We saw that he can be a very good quarterback in the NFL last year. But here's what I want to see. You and I have coached kids from the time they were 5 years old, and you still coach in high school. And I remember there were players that we had when they were young that we saw that they had the talent. We saw
Drake May.
Yeah.
We've coached the kid.
But we saw other players that I remember we would say this about that kid. When that kid's balls drop, he's going to be a beast. And right now, he doesn't know what he's doing, and maybe he's not as tough as he's going to be, but he's got all the talent in the world. But once his balls drop, he's going to be a beast. And you know what? In game 2 of 2025 against the Arizona Cardinals at 4:00 in the afternoon, I need to see Bryce's balls drop. I don't want to hear Mr. Knight. Yeah, not literally. I want to see this kid come out there and get on his players and get on the coach if the plays aren't in time and freaking get pissed off at a receiver for not making the catches they need to make or dropping the balls. He needs to realize that there's urgency now, not just for this team, but for his career. He's trying to get the next contract, which is a big one. He needs to go out there and play with his hair on fire, pissed off, and show everybody on the team that if you miss the ball or if you drop a ball, we're going to get you out of here. Canales, if you ain't going to get the plays in on time, I'll call the damn play. Corbett, I know I'm only freaking 6 foot tall. I know you had half a second to hike it. Hit me in the stomach with it. But you always point out about quarterbacks and players who have it, and you don't know if Bryce has that yet. And no one does, because he hasn't shown that he hasn't yet. He's shown glimpses. But every good quarterback you see, and you saw 2 of them last night in the Ravens-Bills games, where Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson were just going back and forth, back and forth. You saw with Aaron Rodgers yesterday, who everyone thought this guy's going to get hurt the first time he gets breathed on, throw 4 touchdowns, and still looks immobile in the pocket, and still if he gets 2 seconds,
his arm isn't immobile.
His arm is still the rocket. So you see these quarterbacks, we can name them right now, and then you can see the guys who we're waiting for that to happen, but you'd think maybe Penix in Atlanta, who's still very young and had some big plays yesterday.
Penix has it factor.
I think he probably does as well. But with Bryce,
he put the Falcons in position.
He did
in that game.
He did,
and he's had that. That's the one thing that I can say, and that's the one thing that when Bryce was playing young, he did have as well. But that's momentum. I think the word that you're looking for is, playing with your hair on fire.
That's it, 100%. The whole offense. And I feel like our offense is this: they get out there, and then they wait till the clock gets down to about 3, and then they have to hurry up, fire, whatever the hell they yell to hurry up and hike the ball, and then they run their nice regular routes that everybody in the arena, especially the other team's defensive coordinator, knows what we're going to run. We don't put any pressure on the defense. They know we're going to try to run the ball a lot, and we did. But there's no urgency on that offense. There's no aggression on that offense. Liam Cohen, the coach of the Jaguars, had a quote before the game yesterday where he said, "Look, I'm aggressive by nature. So this team is going to take on my aggressive personality." And what did he do? The first drive of the game on their own 37-yard line, they went for it on 4th down. The announcers were going, "What is he doing? I don't understand this." But guess what? He did it. And guess what the team did? They got it. And that makes the team go, okay, all right, this coach believes in us. And we're not sitting out here to try to hold on to a last-minute field goal to win a game. We're going to be aggressive. And they did it on defense, but we made it easy for them on defense. I mean, you and I were calling every freaking play, for God's sake, on the Panthers offense. I want to see this offense go out there pissed off. And maybe Hunter Renfro's a guy that's a leader. He's been a Pro Bowl. Maybe he can get up in some guys' asses, but he's only been there for freaking 2 weeks.
No.
Bryce has got to be the guy. And Bryce has got to be the guy that from the receivers to the offensive line and to Canales. Get me the damn play where I've got time to make adjustments. And let's be aggressive. I mean, last year in the last 10 games of the year, if I'm not mistaken, Bryce Young was number 1 in the league with passes over 20 yards. Yesterday, he missed the Renfro one. I think Tet might have had one. He also had the pass interference over 20 yards, but there was very little of that. And like you mentioned with Leggett, if there's one thing that Leggett can do is run, and he's big. He was one-on-one most of the time. Give the dude chances downfield. That opens up the run game too. And Chuba ran the ball well yesterday, but they knew every time what we were doing. We were calling every run, even when it was. I mean, how many times did we take the receivers out on 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, whatever it was, where everybody knew they could run the ball? And what did Jacksonville do? We called it. They ran blitz. And what did they do? They tackled them behind the line of scrimmage every time. I need to see this offense play with their hair on fire, pissed off, and I need Canales. Maybe Canales needs to stop dressing like he's in a Lululemon commercial and cut off his sleeves and wear black and put a dip in his mouth and get a little pissed off and spit and show a little, because this nice guy stuff. And again, I know I'm harping on Canales a little bit, and I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I don't know yet. I think I like the guy a lot, but guess what? Your offense has taken on the personality of you and your quarterback. And right now, you and your quarterback are 2 dudes that I would love to have date my daughter if I had one. I want a coach and a quarterback that I wouldn't want my daughter to come in 20 feet of them, because I can't trust them, because they're crazy and they're aggressive and they're unpredictable. That's what I want to see from this offense. And yesterday was a joke. And it's like watching the Panthers on offense is the difference between going and seeing a symphony or going to a Metallica concert. I want Metallica. This is like a symphony. It's just, okay, we're going to wait to the last. You would have thought the Panthers were winning by 20 points how many times they hiked the ball at 0. You would have thought they were trying to make the game longer, and they're down 2 touchdowns.
The clock, yeah.
Like it's total opposite. And so, and I watched games yesterday where you and I were watching some of them where teams could have been running the clock out, but they trusted their offense to go get that one more catch that's going to steal the game. And this team plays like they're winning by 20 the whole game. So they've got to let it all out. They got nothing to lose. And guess what? Arizona next week is not going to be an easy place to play. They're lucky it's not going to be 100 degrees. So right, they're going to at least have a nice, comfortable atmosphere. They're going to be playing against a quarterback that's one of the top 3-4 scramblers in the league. He's got a rocket arm. Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best young receivers, had a good game yesterday, a touchdown. They've got one of the top 3 tight ends in McBride, which we could not cover Jacksonville's tight ends yesterday. So McBride's on one of my fantasy teams. He's going to go for 200 yards. We got to see Bryce go in there in this offense and make a difference and play pissed off. Enough of this nice crap and get your stuff together, Canales. Get the plays in on time and let Bryce do what he's got to do and call some plays that are aggressive. Like you said, you said a great comment a few minutes ago where you said, what did we do on offense that made the other team's defensive coordinator go, oh crap?
We don't have a player.
And if we do, use it. Leggett maybe he is that player, but when you don't throw the ball deep to him ever.
Well, it's not. I mean, it's just putting him in position where he can be explosive, right? Where he can run with his hair on fire.
Yeah.
Run after the catch.
Yeah.
I think the word that you're looking for is passion, right? And as you just so eloquently put it,
passionately said,
right? Yeah, passionately said.
Yeah.
Not everybody plays that way, and it's crazy. I'm trying to think of, the dynamic and the chemistry of a team and the makeup of a team, and I'm thinking about teams that I've coached in the past and teams that I've played on in the past versus teams that I'm coaching today, and we're at the beginning of the season. We sit with all of our coaches and we're sitting here talking about who are the leaders of this team. Well, this guy's he's going to be the best player. He's going to be a leader. This guy. And then we start asking ourselves, who's going to be the vocal leader? Who's going to have the passion that's necessary in order to fuel the fire so that everybody catches it?
Yep.
Right. We don't have a guy on our team.
Definitely
no. I'm not talking about Panthers. I'm talking about the team that we're talking about with the coaches. So what do we do? Right? How do we find that voice to be, an extension of what we are as coaches? Either one of two things has to happen in that case. If the players aren't going to provide that pump, that spark, who does?
Coach.
A coach does. And in high school, it's easier to do that. In college, it's easy. In pros, if you're not that guy, it's fake and it's phony. And teams will dump you in a heartbeat because you're just playing up to the cameras, right? That's not who you are. You're a nice guy, right? We have too many nice guys. There's nothing better than that quote from that coach where we have too many cats.
Yeah.
We don't have enough dogs.
Yep.
I need some dogs.
And the guy on offense, there's one guy on offense that I can think of, just one that I can think of that's a dog, and that's Robert Hunt. He's the offensive guard. He talks a lot. He's tough as nails.
Who was the guy that's going to take you and bury you in the ground and then go throw their forearm on you and get a 15-yard penalty just to show you you're my bitch?
Yeah, and Hunt's the guy, but that's the only one I can think of on
We
offense.
don't have guys that try to embarrass other players.
Yeah.
We have guys that want to help them up. We don't have guys or a coach that's going to sit there and dog curse a guy to get something out of him. We have a guy that's going to pat you on the back and tell you it's okay. We'll just do it the next time.
Yeah.
We'll just learn from that. Attitude. Remember the Titans, the movie?
Yep.
When the two guys on the outside and the top, you need to play with more pass. You need to do this. You need to do that. Attitude is a reflection of leadership. There's nothing been more true than that line in that movie when it comes to this team.
Yep.
Attitude or lack thereof is a reflection of leadership. If Canales is going to be the nice guy and he's going to be this, and he better find some dogs, because Harbaugh, he has some fire but he had Ray Lewis. He had Ed Reed. He had guys, Suggs. He had guys at every position group that were going to be that dog that if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, Ray Lewis was going to grab you by the face mask. Ed Reed was going to grab you by the face mask. Terrell Suggs was going to grab you by the face mask. Saragusa was going to grab you. Sam Adams was going to grab you by the face mask. And they were going to make sure that, damn it, you're going to do it this way or else you're not going to be on this team.
Yep.
Who are those guys for the Panthers?
Yep.
We don't have
As of right now, we don't have them.
Who is our captains? Bryce Young? He doesn't want to say a negative thing. And you know what? I can understand that for a quarterback. Do you think Tom Brady would allow that performance to happen? You think Peyton Manning would allow that performance to happen? You think that Aaron Rodgers would allow that performance to happen? Do you think any quarterback that was a leader, Troy Aikman, I watched that great documentary. Now, he was a little stoic at first, but there was a point where he's like, they had Michael Irvin on the offense. They had Emmitt Smith on the offense. They had the offensive line that was going to take the Bulls by the horn. They had Charles Haley on the defensive side. They had guys that were going to say, Ken Norton Jr., Deion Sanders, Michael Irvin. They had guys that were going to say, you know what, damn it, this is who we are, and we're not going to lose, and we're going to find a way to get this done. These guys look like a bunch of choir boys in a street fight, right? And that's who you're recruiting. That's who you're drafting. And I don't know how that changes. I don't know if you should just go find a guy that's going to be a great leader, but sometimes it's necessary to shake the boat a little bit and to rattle the ships a little bit and to call guys out and to make sure that people are going to be held accountable. If you make a mistake, it's not okay. It's not my bad. Just look, get out.
Yep.
We're going to find somebody that can.
Yep.
Examples have to be made sometimes for the betterment of the team, or else you're just going to have the same old crap happening.
And I'm going to tell you this, and then we'll move on. But back to the play calling, when you're calling plays and you're aggressive, and the team's executing, that's how you build off of that on both sides of the ball. I mean, yes,
your dad wanted to blitz on the defensive side you know why?
100%.
You know why? Because that's his personality.
Correct.
I don't give a damn. We're going to hit them.
Yep.
We're going to hit them. If they beat us on a big play, you know what? Good for them, because we're going to come back and hit them again.
Yep.
That was his mentality. That's your mentality.
Yep.
You can't always be that way, but if that's not who you are in nature, I can't be a nice guy and all of a sudden start.
Right. And if Canales starts, if he's more aggressive on the offense and they start getting confidence. That just doesn't happen though. But if they are more aggressive with the play calling and then they see some success with it, that's how it builds. On defense, Evero yesterday didn't blitz hardly at all. Now you're going to say he can't really, because he doesn't have the players to do it. And if he does, he's going to leave something. And you're right. But like you just said, sometimes you got to do it. A big sack, not the quarterback on his butt. I mean, they just, to me, have to get more aggressive with their play calling on both sides of the ball, and the players then have to execute. When the players are aggressive and having fun, you can see it. Mm-hmm. And that's how momentum builds. That's how confidence builds. They're not going to build there when you're having an offense like you're in the library and you have to wait till the last second to even flip the page, which is what we're doing. So Arizona, to me, is a huge game. I don't mean that for playoffs or any of that crap. I mean for Bryce Young and for this team to believe a little bit, because then they come home against the Falcons and they played really well yesterday against Tampa Bay. This is a big game. We've got to see improvement. And I don't mean a little improvement. I mean dramatic improvement on both sides of the ball and from the coaching staff. If that happens, then I think that we could give Arizona a ball game. The offense that we had the last 8 or 10 games of the year last year, it's there. And there's a lot of the same players, but the coach has got to light the match, and he's got to get the plays in on time, and he's got to be more aggressive.
I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and it may not. And you know what? I tell you this, I hope it does, because I don't
think you can just turn that switch on and off.
Well, it seemed to me last year, once it started getting to go, they got momentum, and they were all on the same page, and that's why we looked good offensively the second half of the year. But to me,
where's the carryover?
That's exactly my point. I don't see how. Okay, even if you want to say, okay, well, a lot of the teams Patrick Mahomes in the first half of that game.
So what does that tell you? It tells you the way they prepare.
Yep.
Is not up to par to continue to build. Jimmy Johnson versus Barry Switzer.
Yeah.
If you watch that document, totally Jimmy Johnson, he changed cultures. He had them doing sprints.
Yep.
You were going to throw up in practice if you're not doing. You're going to get cut if you miss. If you don't execute. This is your job. You are a professional. Guess what's going to happen in real life? If you're a doctor and you screw it up, am I going back to you? Yep. You're getting cut, right? I'm not going back to you again. That's real life.
Yep.
If you're expected to make a play and you don't make a play, you're going to find somebody that can.
Yep.
There has to be some sort of consequences for your actions. As harsh as that may sound, this is professional football where guys are making a lot of money, where you're expected to perform and execute, right? And those are the teams that win. But there has to be some sort of fear if you don't.
Yep.
And there's no fear in losing for the Panthers. There's no fear. It's like expected.
Well, that's
accepted.
That's why I was asking you if you're the head coach and you don't want to overreact. But after the putrid performance they had yesterday, and you go in Arizona, how long do you wait to start doing that? So if Leggett, for instance, in the first series of the game runs the wrong route and Bryce throws a pick or whatever the case may be, do you bench his butt and put somebody in there? Like, when do you start?
There has to
me, now's the time, because you've got to start.
If the guy's trying and he's giving effort and he's going out there and doing all the little things in the off season and practice, and he showed up every day, and he's not, I have to figure out as a coach, am I putting him in the right position?
Mm-hmm.
Because this kid's doing everything he can. He obviously has talent. Right. And then I try something else. And if I try something else and he continues to, okay, well, now what?
Yep.
We've exhausted this. We've exhausted that. How else can I help him be successful? Right. Can I teach him better? Can we stay after practice and catch more balls? What is it that can he get on a more timing? Could we run better plays? All the things that I can do where I can And if that still doesn't happen, now I have to start thinking maybe this guy isn't who we thought he was.
Yep.
Right. This game is too big for him. Right. The moment is too big for him. And now I'm going to have to move on. Right. And that's what the progression is with coaches. I don't think we're at that stage yet where you're trying to move on from Leggett.
No,
right?
I don't
because
either.
he has talent. But you have to find a way that he's going to start being productive and motivate him. And first person I would look at if I'm a coach would be, how can I put this kid in position to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
How can we develop some confidence?
Yep.
Is it a screen pass? Is it a tunnel pass? Is it a 5-yard stop where you just throw him the ball, let him catch
even let him run the ball like they do with Debo Sweeney.
Let him run a reverse.
Yes.
Right? So we find a way, to get this kid a chance to be successful. And then those things, like you said, will start to snowball and grow.
Well, here's one thing that I would be shocked if we don't see next week. I'll be very surprised if we don't see Ransom on the defense a lot more than he played yesterday, because of a lot of the reasons we're talking about: attitude, thumper, good against the run. So I'll be shocked if we don't see him. And I know he's young and got a lot to learn and all those things that they can say, but I'll be very surprised if we don't see him play a lot more against Arizona than we did this past week. And then at the receiver position, I don't know. I mean, that's I think that you're going to see more deep balls, I would hope, but we'll break that down.
Deep balls are not the answer.
Well, you have to, it at least helps open up the offense a little bit.
If you're successful, if you're just throwing deep balls and you can't catch them,
well, of course,
defenses are going to say, you know what, let him throw the deep ball.
Of course, but what I'm saying is not being so predictable. So mix in some of those damn plays to just keep the defensive coordinator off track. That defensive coordinator yesterday was like playing chess, and we were playing chess. He knew exactly what we were doing. Me and you did. We were sitting there making every freaking call that we were.
But you understand, again, I mean, there is some unpredictability in some things that you do, but for the most part, teams are going to know what you do. They're going to know, I'm going to know what they're doing, right? If I don't, I didn't study my film.
Right.
The difference is they executed.
No doubt.
Right? They did. So here's they did what they do well, better than what we do well. And that's the reason why you want to lose a game. It's not rocket science. It's not some crazy plays that we're going to draw up and trick them to death, right? No, we have to execute the simple things, right? And if we're not doing those things because we're not prepared to do those things, and we're not being put in position to do those things, and we don't even know what those things are. Who are we as a team? Mm-hmm. We don't know what makes us tick. How can we be successful?
And especially when Canales has been on the record so many times as saying we're going to be a team that runs the ball and stops running. That's going to be our MO.
6 yards a carry.
Exactly. So
look in the NFL.
Run the ball. By the way, they've shown that they can run the ball.
We were pretty.
But when you get behind, you can't run the ball anymore.
That's right.
And when you don't stop the run on defense, you're going to be behind. So until they fix that. And I don't know how you fix it. I mean, if you don't have the players, again, Dan brought in a bunch of guys for that defensive line. You got and Les chalked yesterday up to first game, 100 degrees heat, maybe. I hope that's what it is. Like I said, we did see some flashes. Turk Wharton flashed a few times, but let those rookies get in there a little bit. Let Scorton play a little more. He's evidently good against the run as well. But we'll break all that down on Friday, and hopefully everybody by Friday we'll forget this game yesterday and the fact that we felt the same way we did the majority of the last 5 years. Before we go, because we'll do our NFL breakdown Friday and previews and all that stuff. Want to talk college football a little bit. The card this weekend wasn't nearly as good as the card the week before, which is one of the best. Didn't
have all the hype surrounding it, but there's still some good games.
There were some good games, and so I just want to, because we got to keep this quick, do a few things that I saw this weekend that I thought was pretty interesting in college football.
So what did you learn this week in college
Here's
football?
what I learned in college football this weekend. Number one, Florida State is the real deal. And I know they played a bad team this week, but
they did what they're supposed to do against a bad team.
It also set up to have a letdown after the huge upset over Alabama.
Ask Clemson.
That's one of the other things I learned. So first of all, I learned that Florida State's for real. The second thing I learned was that Clemson is not what we all thought they were going to be. I mean, Troy was whooping their butt in the first half, and they came back and won. Klubnik, who you haven't been a big believer in anyway, and I was kind of in a wait and see mode. I don't buy into him. I think he's a solid quarterback. I think he's going to have good numbers against bad teams, although he played like crap the first half against Troy. But I'm knocking Clemson down on what I believe in. That's two things. The third thing was the Michigan-Oklahoma game. The quarterback Blair Underwood from Michigan gets $10 million. You know, everyone says by far number one quarterback prospect out there. And you know, he looked like a freshman in his first game or second game
against
a very good
quality opponent,
no doubt about it. And so, you know, Michigan losing that game, I thought that was going to be a much better game than that. Oklahoma's quarterback, on the other hand, who transferred from Washington State, is a baller.
Mm-hmm.
You talking about a dude that leads the team whether it's running the ball, throwing the ball. I mean, that dude. To me, he's got some Baker Mayfield in him. He's got a little swag,
mm-hmm.
And he's tough, you know. And so, Oklahoma, I think might be better than I was going to give them credit for. We'll see about Michigan.
So you would sell Clemson, buy Oklahoma,
yeah, and then
sell Michigan.
Okay. I wasn't high on Michigan anyway, but I thought that would be a better game. Couple other things I learned that I thought were just interesting, and this really has nothing to do with a game itself. I did not know that Bo Jackson's son was the highest rated recruit at running back this offseason and went to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't play in the first game against Texas, but against Grambling. And again, they're playing Grambling, so I'll preface it by saying that. He had 9 rushes for like 109 yards, touchdown. Looks like he can just run. Not as big as his dad. I think he might be a little taller, but definitely not as stout. But I didn't even know he was, I didn't know Bo even had a son. So I like stuff like that. I mean, Notre Dame, we had an off week, but I know we've got the sons of Jerome Bettis and Plexico Burress and Larry Fitzgerald and some of those guys. And I always like rooting for those guys. It shows you how old we are now that we're now watching these sons of guys that were on our fantasy football teams, 10, 15 years ago. So I enjoy rooting for those kind of guys. But the other thing I learned is, and this is going to lead into a big game this week. Again, we'll talk about this on Friday, but Vanderbilt's quarterback, man, like
Peavy?
No.
Pavea. Yeah.
Talk about swag. I mean, we knew he had it anyway. I mean, last year they won games for the first time in the history of their program. He gets a nice NIL deal, stays at Vanderbilt, which a lot of people think he was going to be out of there. They're losing 20-10 at halftime against Virginia Tech in Virginia Tech. And all he does is proceed to come back and beat the doors off of. Well, by the way, that coach is in trouble.
Well, the Virginia Tech coach is definitely in trouble. But the kid from Vanderbilt,
he's a stud.
I mean, he plays with a chip on his shoulder.
He does, man.
And
he's not the biggest guy.
He did it against Alabama a couple of years ago.
Yeah, last year in Tennessee.
Where you saw, him just kind of put the team on his back. And the team responded.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the types of players at leadership positions that you want, and the kind of player that we were, I think, discussing earlier with the Panthers that they don't have.
Right.
That's the guy that you need. Somebody's going to say, let's get on my back, let's roll. And, let's just leave it out here.
If you're not going to get it done, I'm going to put it on my back.
What I learned in college football.
Let me finish two more things because I just want to bring this up before I forget. This upcoming weekend, there's 3 games in particular that I'm really excited to watch. One of them is Vanderbilt versus South Carolina I'm going to
that game.
And you're going to the game. I think it's a 4:00 game, or maybe
they started at 4. They may have flexed it to later just because of the heat. It is the second hottest place on earth next to hell.
I was going to say that place is always hot.
It is so dang hot down there, and I think they may have moved it to the night just to kind of.
But that's going to be a great.
If you
test.
saw at some of the games yesterday in college, it's a little bit more heat.
They delay it for heat or whatever. So I'm interested to see that game because of everything we just said about Pavea, but also, South Carolina, and granted they were playing South Carolina State, but offensively they look pretty bad most of the game. Their punt returner, that kid had 3 straight punt returns over 2 games, which has never happened before. Lightning in a bottle. And one thing about South Carolina that they don't lack in is speed. They have it everywhere. So
and they have a quarterback that has the it. He may not be the most polished guy, but when it's cutting time,
he's a man.
He has stepped up, and you're going to have 2 quarterbacks in that game.
That
are going to be trying to help their team win, but they're going to do it maybe in a little bit different way. But when it comes down to it, it's going to fall on their shoulders.
No doubt. So I'm excited to see that game. I'm excited to see Notre Dame. They had a bye week this week. They're at home against Texas A&M. So, they lost to Miami in a heartbreaker. Now they get Texas A&M, who is a solid football team for sure. So I'm excited about that and seeing how CJ Carr, Notre Dame's freshman quarterback, responds after his first game against Miami. Hopefully they take the handcuffs off of him a little bit. And then the third game that I'm excited about is Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia has shown nothing in the first 2 games. They've played
pretty vanilla, pretty basic, run the ball, win the game, 28-6.
And they played nobody and whatever. Tennessee, on the other hand, has played nobody, but they're putting up 70 points a game.
Just their offense. Yeah, that's the way Heupel does it. I mean,
correct.
He's a good offensive mind. It's hurry up and go, throw the ball all over the place. Let's play fast. Let's play physical. Yeah. And, we don't care who we're playing. We're going to execute to our standards, and they're just putting up numbers.
And that's the SEC for you. Every week they're going to have a tough matchup, but I'm really excited to see
completely two different styles in the way that they approach it, right? And which is going to win out. And is it going to be the run and shoot, or is it going to be the half court offense and defense?
Yeah, and so I'm excited to see which one of those two teams are the real deal. So those are the games. We'll talk about those on Friday with our picks and all those things. But I'm really excited about this college football weekend, and I hate to say that I'm excited to see the Panthers. My Giants suck again. Offensive line sucks. Russell Wilson can't.
That might be the only team the Panthers are favored against if they played all year.
Maybe the Saints, but man, that's it. That's the only.
We'll see. I think that's going to be interesting.
And we beat the Giants last year somehow. But the NFL. It's amazing to me how teams just can't fix things. Dan Morgan fixed the offensive line in one offseason, right?
What do you mean by fix?
Like Panthers fixed their offensive line last year in one offseason. That's rare. Giants haven't fixed their offensive line in 6 years. It's amazing. They haven't fixed it. And Daniel Jones, you see, go to a team with a good offensive line and plays great yesterday. Now let's get, what do you learn?
Yeah, in college football, I agree with you. It wasn't necessarily the card that we saw the week before. But there's two teams I'm selling, and I'm giving bargain basement prices for them. One is Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that Klubnik is a guy that's going to be a team that beats Clemson, Florida State. Those teams have improved. You see the moves that they've made. There's good and bad to the philosophy of not entering the transfer portal or paying guys an exorbitant amount of money with NIL. The good is you're going to save some money, you're going to keep some loyalty. The bad is if you have the same player returning and he's not very good, you're going to be stuck with him, right? Klubnik is a guy that has just kind of peaked out. He's inconsistent. He doesn't read defenses very well. He holds on to the ball. The other team I'm selling is Texas. I'm not a big believer that they're.
You're not an Arch Manning guy. I fought on that one.
I think Arch Manning has a lot of upside. You see the athleticism, but there's something that's hesitant with him right now to pull the trigger when guys are running open or he has to throw the ball on time. He's not pulling the trigger. He's choosing to hold on to it and take the safer option, which against bad teams you're going to be able to beat because your players around you are going to be better.
He threw 4 touchdowns in 5 minutes.
4 touchdowns in 5 minutes to wide open receivers against a high school football team.
Yeah, I ain't arguing it.
And they weren't decision-making routes. They were, this guy's running wide open. Let me put a little air under it and hopefully he catches it because there's nobody within 20 yards. That's not quarterback play. You and I could make that throw. Quarterback play is that defense is here, that corner goes there, that safety drops here. This is the route that's going to be open. I know that because I see it. Boom, throw the ball, right? It's a 20-yard dig, right? Or okay, that route's taken. I have to go check down because they've covered everything low. This is going to be the best chance for us to be successful. The decision-making process is like playing point guard with the fast break offense. You have to know where players are going to be because things are happening fast. You have to pull that trigger and make a decision. It seems like he wants to throw, but he gives up on it. He gives up on that route. And I'm not talking, and I can understand if you were getting pressured, from guys up front to make, but Texas had these guys locked down 1 yard off the line of scrimmage in the pocket. I couldn't draw a prettier picture of how a pocket is supposed to look for Arch Manning.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still checking down, right? Those are things to me that is a confidence lack of him playing that position because he doesn't want to make the big mistake. He's not letting it fly. And that means pressure for me is starting to creep. But
don't you think though, and this is what when we argued about this the other day, the only thing I'll say is this: I don't disagree with that. I mean, he underthrew a lot of wide receivers. He overthrew a lot of wide receivers.
He's not throwing the ball on time.
Behind a lot of guys.
He's not throwing the ball on time.
I agree. He also made some great passes as well. But the thing I will give him a break on, and I'm not a Texas guy, and I'm not an Arch Manning. Like, if he's good or not doesn't affect me at all unless the Panthers draft him. Which
he looked like a deer in the headlights against San Jose State.
At times he did, but my point is this: don't you think that a lot of that? I mean, he opened up at Ohio State, best defense probably in the country.
They opened up. Oh yeah, they opened up. And then I thought you said he opened up.
No, they opened up there. Tough environment, first start. I see the tools, and I think he's going to get better as time goes. The problem they're going to have is their schedule's a beast as well. So, he's not going to have another San Jose State to make mistakes. He's going to have to get better quick. So I'm not just selling them yet, but I definitely would knock them down a couple notches.
My issue is when you're getting paid like a pro player, you need to be similar to a pro player. You shouldn't look like a high school kid coming into a situation where you're expected to lead and be the best player in the country because you're getting the most money. If you're going to accept the donations and the money, then you're going to accept the criticism.
Yeah,
right?
he has not.
And the criticism is from me is that he does not look like a $6 million player. I agree with you completely that you can see the upside, you can see the intangibles, you can see the arm strength, you can see the athleticism. My criticism is that's already supposed to be showing because you've made and been sold to us a bill of goods that you are that guy. You are him. He's not him. He's not him yet.
Yeah.
He could be him. He could be him. There's a lot of players that could be him, but he's not him.
Yeah.
Right. He's not playing like Pavea. He's not playing like the kid from Florida State. He's not playing like a seasoned veteran, but he's getting paid more than anybody else. And he has the pedigree. And that's the expectations that were set because of that. He's underachieved in his expectations, and he's looked sloppy and unprepared doing it.
Well, if you look at Texas' schedule, they had San Jose State this past week.
Should have lit him up.
They've got UTEP next.
Should light them up.
Light them up. They have Sam Houston State
Should
next.
light them up. They scored 31 points against San Jose State at home.
Then they go on October 4th, which is another team that I've totally sold. I never really bought them in the first place. Then they go at Florida. Florida just lost to South Florida, which, by the way,
not only South Florida paid South Florida $500,000 to come whoop their ass.
Yeah,
they got paid.
And then you got a guy spitting on a dude again, like Jalen Carr. I don't know what's going on with that, but Florida, that Napier won't make it through the season. They better give all that Florida money they got, and they better talk freaking what's his name out of retirement.
No, Bill Belichick. Yeah, that works well.
The coach that won the
I know Urban Meyer.
They better open up whatever check they can give him to get him back. Then they're at Oklahoma.
They might as well get Lou Holtz. He was sitting in the.
Yeah, man. I thought it was Joe Biden up there for a little bit, and I love Lou Holtz. But anyway, so Texas has a few more games to get that experience going and see if he can smooth it out. Because right now, you're right, it's definitely choppy. And South Florida, by the way, we didn't talk about them, but beat ranked Boise State week 1, beat Florida week 2, and got paid to do it. And guess what they get for those 2 ranked wins? Now they go to Miami. So I love that coach. I love that quarterback.
What's Miami's coach or South Florida?
South Florida. I like Miami's coach too, but I think South Florida's coach, just his demeanor. When you hear him talk, that makes me want to go fight.
How about Lane Kiffin and what he said this week?
He cost me money. So when he made the comment about sorry to who bet on the game about that late field goal, he was referring to me. That would have been one of the only games I won money on.
But
he does it all. He always brings up the spreads, which trips me out in this day and age. But I guess he can say, well, you know what? Stop taking money from FanDuel and DraftKings and all these things, which a lot of those don't let you bet on college players, and a lot of them do. So anyway, fun weekend. Unfortunately, Panthers crapped the bed.
Oregon
Ducks look good, but I want to see them play somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
It always comes down to, can they play defense? They're always going to score
against the big boys.
Against the big boys. So
they'll be there.
And last year they had Ohio State, close game with them in Oregon. So they're when they played them in Oregon, when
the first
they
time
lost, but it was a close game.
Yeah, and then Ohio State blew them doors out.
That coach at Oregon I like a lot too.
Yeah.
But Friday we'll be back. Panthers preview, NFL preview, college preview. This weekend's college card. We just mentioned a few of the games, but there's a lot of good games this weekend. And we'll hopefully over the next 3-4 days learn a little bit more about the Panthers debacle this weekend and what they're doing to fix it. And hopefully feel a little bit better on Friday and have a little more positivity.
I'm not buying.
Frank likes to say that I'm the glass half full.
He's the optimist.
And I'm sure by Friday I'm going to be a lot more full than I am now. I'm like way down here.
He ramps up. He starts ramping up as we get closer.
I'll start ramping up. But thank you guys for joining us. Those of you who joined us live, make comments. We appreciate it. We're going to probably start doing live a lot more if everybody seems to be into it. You can catch us on TV tonight at 8:00 and on all your podcast platforms. Big D over there. Thank you, buddy. Dylan's the quiet guy of our team,
sure is.
But does all the work.
He's the brains behind the operation.
He's definitely the brains and keeps us organized. So I want to thank Dylan. I always forget to do that at the end of the show. But thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you Friday.